She was called Claire in her hometown by the river where the bridges shook in winter wind, and where the old steel plant threw a gray shine on the water at dusk. She liked quiet streets and clean lines of routine. She fixed small machines for neighbors and kept a notebook of odd signals she caught on a battered radio. She had a steady hand and a simple life and a heart that tried to stay calm even when the radio hissed with voices that never said a single clear word. That night the air felt strange. The radio gave a soft hum, like a held breath. Claire sat at her desk in a sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed up. The room was small and warm and smelled like solder and pine soap. The clock ticked in a corner, and a cat from the alley stood on the fire escape and watched the room with a quiet stare. The lamp threw a circle of light over old circuit boards and a map with pins. She marked places where static grew strong, then faded with the moon. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself she would sleep soon. She did not sleep. The hum rose. A soft tone in the walls and floor like a low song under the skin of the house. The alley cat leapt down, the lamp flickered. The window latch trembled, and then the door eased open, as if a hand had learned its weight and pull in a single try. A figure entered without sound. She wore a long dark field coat like something a scout would wear in rain. Her hair had a pale glow, not like fire and not like glass, but like cloud turned thin and bright by sunrise. Her eyes were a deep river blue, and they held the room as if it were a small island, and she had sailed. A long way to reach it, Claire stood. The chair rolled back. She did not speak. The visitor did not speak. A palm rose in a calm sign that meant no harm. The air cooled and grew steady. The hum settled into the bare edge of hearing. The visitor looked once at Claire, and once at the lamp, and once at the old radio, and then back to Claire. In that single row of glances, something changed in the shape of the night. Fear had less room to stand. Time felt longer and thinner. And Claire knew without any word that the stranger needed help. The visitor gave a sign over the heart and bowed her head. She touched her coat as if to say, "I come with only what I wear." She touched the radio as if to say, "I heard you." She touched the map as if to say, "You watch the sky from the ground." Claire breathed out. She nodded. She pointed to the chair. The stranger sat and closed her eyes for a long, slow count. When she opened them again, she tried to form a sound and could not. She smiled an apology. She drew a thin disk from her sleeve and set it on the desk. It cast a gentle shape in the air, an image like a fog window. Within it there was a broad, dark sea, and a sky with 2 slow moons, then a city that hung by threads of light. Then a small boat of metal reeds, and a girl in the boat with the same pale hair and river blue eyes alone. Rowing with quiet strokes as a red wind rose and broke over the water like glass, Claire watched with care. She touched the edge of the image where it trembled. She saw a beacon tower in the distance and a ring of ships and the girl rowing toward them. She saw a white flare on the shore and 4 tall shapes running. She saw the boat rise and fall in a hard wave. The image blurred, then steadied on a mark like a star pinned inside a ring. The mark pulsed, and a path drew itself. Down to a rough sketch of earth, and then to a small rust river, and a bridge, and finally to her window. The image held there like a breath that waited for a yes. The stranger turned the image off and clasped her hands as if she had asked a favor and had to wait. Claire nodded again, and the nod the night softened. A pact formed without a single word. Claire wrote on a notepad slowly so the stranger could follow the shapes. She wrote, "My name is Claire." The visitor traced the letters with a fingertip. Then she wrote a name in a careful human hand. It read Ada. The letters were simple and a little shy. They held steady as if they had been practiced far away on a ship that watched Earth turn like a small blue. Clock Ada pressed the thin disk again and showed a map of lines that snaked around the world like quiet rivers. At each bend there was a small symbol like a sleeping eye. Some eyes were open, some were closed. She pointed to the open eyes and then to the closed ones. She touched her own chest and then lifted her hand as if to say, "We look and we care and we learn." She drew a circle around one spot near the Rust River, and a mark blinked red. She spread her hands like someone admitting a mistake, then tapped the radio with the gentlest reproach. as if the signal Claire had sent by accident had called her harder than it should and put her at risk in a place where eyes were not friendly. Claire wrote, "I can hide you." She pointed to a closet behind the coats. She pointed to the roof and the crawl space. She pointed to a narrow gap behind the bookcase where she kept a folded cot. Ada shook her head, not out of pride, but out of trust. She put the disc away. She rested her hand on Claire's shoulder with care, and that single touch was warm and steady and honest. It was the kind of touch you give when you have crossed a dark sea and found one safe dock, and you will not break it the night cracked. When boots hit the stair, heavy, fast, angry, a sharp knock like a hammer on iron, a voice outside called for city inspection, though it was no hour for that. Claire felt the old fear try to stand again. Ada glanced once at the door and once at the window, and then stepped back into the deeper shadow between lamp and shelf. Claire turned the radio to static and let it flood the room with white rain. She pulled a drawer of screws and let them spill in a sound like hail on a tin roof. She flipped the breaker by the door, and the lamp died. The room fell into a dim blue half-light from the street, and the old plant the door opened without weight. 3 figures entered in dark coats with small, hard smiles that did not reach the eyes. They held no city badges. They used the tone of those who act as if they own the next 10 minutes of your life. They asked for a permit in a bored cadence. They asked for a record of radios and parts and sales. They asked for names. They asked for the names again. Claire kept her face calm. She moved with a slow, honest clatter among drawers and bins. She found old receipts and handed them over. She moved the chair to block line of sight to the deeper shadow. The men grew restless. One brushed his hand along the shelf. One tapped the window and looked at the fire escape. One pointed at the map with pins and made a small joke with no humor in it. Ada stayed still as a river stone. The static hugged the walls. The men did not know that the noise bent their small sensors out of tune. Claire knew she had guessed what the white rain would do. She answered with the plain rhythm of someone who pays tax and keeps tools clean and has nothing to hide. But a single life she will not hand over. She gave her name and her address and a path back to the door in her soft voice. And when they called her brave with a grin that meant the opposite, she did not blink. She asked if they wished some tea and pointed to the stove that was cold. And that small act of human normal made them blink. Instead, they left with a warning and a smirk and a slow scrape of boot on stair. The hum eased and the static thinned. Claire closed the door and leaned on it. Ada stepped out from shadow with a look that held gratitude and concern together. She touched her own wrist, where a thin band glowed like a frost line. She held it out to Claire. The band cast a map again. This time not of eyes and lines, but of 7 shapes like seeds. They were ships, small and clever. They had come down in a quiet rain all across the Rust River Valley. They were scouts that watched the watchers and tried to keep kind people safe. When eyes turned sharp, Ada pointed to one seed shape above the old plant and then drew a short path in the air to a hill beyond the river. There a circle cleared, and an 8th seed waited. Its light was faint. She made a sign that said, "It is weak." She drew another sign that said, "Together we can wake it." The band showed a burst of red at the edge of the map. A patrol moved along the rail yard. Time was short. Claire looked at her coat and her work boots and her small bag with tools and tape and copper wire. She looked at the window and the fire escape, and then at Ada. She nodded. Her heart was loud. But a loud heart can still be steady when purpose holds it, like a cup they left by the back stair and slipped through the alley, where the cat led like a small gray guide. They moved across a quiet street, where lights from a diner spilled. It's a soft gold sheen, and a girl named Megan mopped the floor and waved. Claire waved back and kept moving. They crossed under the bridge where the river made a low song. They climbed the slope, where scrub trees clung to rock. From the hilltop the old plant looked like a sleeping beast in the dark. Beyond it, the rail yard held a row of lights that watched the ground like tired stars. The seed ship waited in a hollow where the wind could not pry at it. It looked like a curled leaf of night metal, thin as a page, but strong as a rib. Ada laid her hand on it, and the leaf shivered and opened like a book. Inside, there was a soft glow, and a bench, and a nest of cables like roots. Claire held a cable where Ada pointed and twisted a collar and locked it to a node. A soft blue pulse answered her touch. Another cable went to a broken joint and would not hold. Claire bound it with copper and tape, and then with a strip from her own coat. She used a coin as a brace. She used a hair tie as a clamp. The ship took each small gift and made it enough the patrol reached the edge of the hill. 2 drones with thin wings and sharp ears. Ada watched them with a calm that did not fool Claire. The